Hi, I'm an artist and may I ask, is your wrist in pain? Do you like drawing ability sock? Okay, sorry for being rude, but I think I do have the solution for you though. Are you interested in listening? Even at technically no cost? Aw, too bad. You don't have a choice anyway. So let's talk about learning to use your arm properly when drawing. That sounds boring. Drawing with your whole arm? Way too serious, not my kind of vibe. Okay, so let's talk about arm uses when doing art, or in other one, AUA. Do something. So that is what we want to use to refer to this skill. And when I say every artist needs to master this, I mean every single artist. Like no matter what you use, like pen, pencil, paper pen or brush, no matter what kind of art you prefer, like with line art or no line art, or whether you are a traditional or a digital artist, you need to learn this skill as soon as possible. Yes, every single one of you. But first, let's talk about the reason why, shall we? Because it is not very convincing when a random stranger online just tells you to do something without at least explaining the reason why, is it? So why we have to learn AUA first, and not any other basic art skill out there, like value, like perspective, like colors. Like all of these are important skills too, so why not them, but AUA? First of all, I want to say one thing about all the skills mentioned here, is that properly learning any of them will make your art look a lot better, like 100% certain here. But I would argue the reason why AUA get the priority in the learning order is because besides the obviously good art quality boost, AUA also provides something of no less importance, as it is the first step to avoid wrist pain when doing art for a long extended period of time. So something really important when you want to do art for a long time into the future, whether as a hobbyist or as a professional. Because if you think about it, when you mainly rely on just your wrist to do all of the painting, drawing work, your wrist will get tired fast, which can be a temporary side effect, but absolutely can develop into irreversible damage when you just use your wrist for days on end. By sharing the workload to your elbow and your shoulder, in other words, your whole arm, not only you could have your wrist not get tired as fast, but also every joint on your arm will be happy too. Why? Because if you think about it a little bit more, when you only use your wrist, either out of habit or lack of knowledge or anything else, you are unintentionally putting a huge responsibility on your wrist to make good art. And think about how stressful it must be for your wrist to bear such a responsibility alone. And what if it messed up? What if the art is not good? Do you ever think about that? How tough it is to face such a thing alone? And also think about how sad it is for your elbow and your shoulder to get sidelined all the time. Like, they want to enjoy the fun, to participate in creating something pretty too. Let them enjoy the party, okay? Don't get kept. So in conclusion, by learning AUA, you not only assure that every joint on your arm will be happy and less stressed, but also guarantee countless years of enjoying creating art without pain. And also better quality art, by the way. Isn't it such a good deal? What are you waiting for? Why don't you sign up right now at the link up? Okay, so that was my attempt at convincing you AUA is important. And I'm not very good at, persuading people, so don't really know if that works. But in the slim chance that you are successfully being persuaded, here's how you can acquire AUA. But first, we need to talk about some pre-practice stuff, including the goal, the arm motion, the posture, and the equipment. So, all the most interesting things on earth are here, but they are necessary, so we need to talk about them. First, the final goal. Let's zoom out and talk about the big picture, or our ultimate goal on the AUA learning journey, and it is muscle memory. I know it's not art quality, but your art quality boost is kinda something we will acquire along the way, so don't really need to think too much about that. Just focus on your arm and the muscle memory. In the beginning of our learning journey, we may have to pay a lot of attention to how our arms move, But when we get used to that, slowly we don't really need to think about that anymore, and our arms just automatically do the thing. And at the same time, our line quality, our art quality will naturally go up as well. And on the topic of how our arms move, what kind of arm motion we need to do? Let's talk about that next. So when practicing AUA, we have to pay attention to 3 joints on our arms. And now repeat after me. Those 3 joints are your wrist, your elbow, and your shoulder. So what we need to do is moving one single joint at a time, or we can say move one and lock others. And depending on what kind of line we want, we will need different joints. Like for example, for the big shapes and the long lines, we will move the shoulder and lock the elbow and the wrist. And the smaller the shape and the shorter the line, the lower the joint we will use on the arm. And according to that logic, the tiniest of movement will be done by the fingers, but they are kinda irrelevant when talking about AUA, so you don't need to care about them too much. And since we are talking about how to move your arms, let's talk about how to not move your body next, aka your posture, aka everybody's favorite. I know. So the most important thing here is that your whole arm has to be able to move freely. And that means we need to keep our elbows from the table or whatever surface we are drawing on. And some might find that to be a little bit uncomfortable and unstable. So how can we stabilize ourselves if we don't rely on our elbows on the table? And I have 2 tips for this kind of problem. First, you can kind of rest the side of your palm like this part on the drawing surface. But don't put too much pressure on that part because you still want your hand to be able to glide on the drawing surface. And second, unfortunately, you do have to engage your core a little bit to stabilize your whole upper body when you are AUA-ing. So the goal here is your body staying as still as possible, and you only move the part that you need to move, and that is your shoulder or your elbow, depending on the situation as we have discussed previously. Finally, let's quickly talk about the equipment, and then we can finally move on to the actual practice. So what should we use to practice with? Paper and pen, pencil, fountain pen, or your pen and tablet, or digitally. Some may insist that you must go with the traditional route, so you must use pencil and paper to practice AUA with. But personally, I don't think that is the case. Because as we already talked about it, the final goal here is mainly muscle memory. So I think we can use whatever we are the most familiar with to practice AUA. And so yeah, your pen and tablet is totally okay. But I do have to note that with certain equipment like brushes, the difficulty will skyrocket a little bit, so please be aware of that. Okay, with that out of the way, now we can finally talking about some actual practice or the exercise we can do to acquire AUA. That is drawing 2 dots and connecting them. I know, sounds underwhelmingly simple, right? Here's what we should aim for in that exercise, by the way. So the goal here is going from point A to point B in an as straight as possible line, but you don't need to strive for perfect straightness, as that is not something that exists, and extreme precision, like your line has to stop right at point B. Because once again, we need to focus on the motion and the arm muscles, so try to be as straight and precise as you can, but no need to stress about it. But still sounds very simple, right? Here's 2 more things you should pay attention to, by the way. I call them D&D, distance and direction. So the first one, distance, and this one is simple. The longer the distance between the 2 dots are, the harder the exercise becomes, and the shorter, the easier. So adjust accordingly to your own level and circumstances. And in order to maximize growth, we should aim for a level that is just slightly above our comfortable reach. And remember, just slightly, not too much, know your own level, know your own strength. For the second point, direction. So most people will have one or some direction that they find easier to draw straight line with. Like for example, right-handed people may find this left to right and slightly upward direction very comfortable to draw with. So according to that logic, maybe left-handed people will find the mirror version comfortable. I'm not very sure, because I don't know any left-handed people in real life, but so please let me know if this is true. So still according to that logic, maybe Australian people will find the upside down version easier? No, let's stop here, okay. Anyway, the point is that you need to focus on that comfortable direction when practicing a UA. Why? Remember, this is all about muscle memory. So building that from an already existing foundation, okay, the direction you are already familiar with, is a quicker and more efficient way to get to that goal. So you need to repeatedly practice that direction to get even more used to and even more comfortable with that motion. And naturally, the quality of your art will also go up very quickly as well. And when you feel more confident, try to expand the range of the direction a little by little. And when you feel even more confident and need a reality check, try a completely different direction and you will be humbled real fast. So theoretically, with enough practice, you will get to a level that you are comfortable drawing lines with any direction. But realistically, you don't really need to reach that level. Because guess what? You can rotate your paper if you do things traditionally, and also your canvas in your preferred drawing program if you do things digitally. So rotate your drawing surface to make all of your lines fall into your comfortable range of direction. And talking about doing things digitally, this is where digital artists can cheat a little. Because guess what? You can even zoom out on your computer. Magical, right? So you only need to master a rather short of a practice line and you're quite ready to go. And here, some may argue, do you even need a UA because you possess the power of zooming out, for the digital artist? And yes, you do. It's for your wrist health. Think about the longevity of doing art and think about how unsustainable it is to just rely on one part of your body to do all of the work. So yeah, whatever kind of artist you are, learn a UA. And in conclusion, practice a lot of two dots and connects with the direction that you are the most comfortable with. In other words, be a one-trick pony and you're good to go. Personally, I think this exercise is plenty enough to properly learn a UA. But what if you want to take it up a notch? Just for some personal achievement, I guess. What you can do is grabbing a blank page of paper and draw a line along one side of the paper, the long one or the shorter one depending on how difficult you want it to be, and repeat that until you run out of paper. And what we aim for here is trying to get all the lines as parallel as possible to each other, and in the end we should get something like this. Or if that's not something you like, you can use something difficult like a brush. And personally, I only challenge the short lines when working with a brush, something like this. But it can absolutely be quite a fun and arguably peaceful time too. So that's pretty much it. But this got quite a lot of information. So here's a quick sum up. And in today's video, we discussed the importance of a UA, using your whole arm when doing art. We need to pick up a UA as early as possible to prevent wrist pain and also bonus increase in art quality. Before practicing, here's 4 things to pay attention to. First, the final goal is muscle memory. Second, the arm motion we need to do is moving one joint and locking others. Third, for the posture, you need to keep your elbow off the drawing surface to move your whole arm freely. And finally, the equipment, you can use whatever you want to practice with. And finally, for the exercise, it is two dots and connect. And we need to pay attention to D and D. First, the longer the distance, the more difficult the exercise becomes, and vice versa, the shorter the easier. And for the direction, we need to focus on the direction that you find the most comfortable with. So that was the video, and I know that was a lot, but I hope at least one of you who are watching right now could find this information helpful. So yeah, anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching and hope you had a great day / night ahead, and see you later.